June 8, 1967, the fourth day of the six-day war between Israel and Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, was a beautiful day in the Mediterranean. The USS Liberty was in international waters off the coast of Egypt. Israel aircraft had flown over the USS Liberty in the morning and had reported that the ship was American. The crew, in close proximity to the war zone, was reassured by the presence of Israeli aircraft. But at 2 p.m., sailors sunbathing on the deck saw fighter jets coming at them in attack formation. Red flashes from the wings of the fighters were followed by explosions and blood and death. A beautiful afternoon suddenly became a nightmare. Who was attacking the USS Liberty and why? The attack on the Liberty was an attack on America. The Liberty was an intelligence ship. Its purpose was to monitor Soviet and Arab communications in order to warn both Israel and Washington should the Soviets enter the war on behalf of its Arab allies. The Liberty was armed only with 4 machine guns to repel boarders. Its request for a destroyer escort had been denied. The assault on the Liberty is well documented. With no warning, the Liberty was attacked by successive waves of unmarked jets using cannon, rockets, and napalm. The attacking jets jammed all the U.S. communications frequencies, an indication they knew the Liberty was an American ship. The air attack failed to sink the Liberty. About 30 minutes into the attack, 3 torpedo boats flying the Star of David. The Israeli boats were not on a rescue mission. They attacked the Liberty with cannon, machine guns, and torpedoes. 1 torpedo struck the Liberty midship, instantly killing 25 Americans while flooding the lower decks. The Israeli torpedo boats destroyed the life rafts the Liberty launched when the crew prepared to abandon ship, sending the message there will be no survivors. At approximately 3:15, 2 French-built Israeli helicopters carrying armed Israeli troops appeared over the Liberty. Phil Turney could see their faces only 50 feet away. He gave them the finger. Surviving crew members are convinced the Israelis were sent in to board and kill every single surviving American left. The Israeli jets destroyed the Liberty's communication antennas, and while under attack from the jets, crew members strung lines that permitted the ship to send a call for help. The USS Saratoga and the USS America launched fighters to drive off the attacking aircraft. But the rescue mission was aborted by direct orders from Washington. When the Liberty notified the Sixth Fleet it was again under attack, this time from surface ships, the fleet commander ordered the carriers America and Saratoga to launch fighters to destroy or drive off the attackers. The order was unencrypted and picked up by Israel, which immediately called off its attack. The torpedo boats and their hovering helicopters sped away. Israel quickly notified Washington it had mistakenly attacked an American ship, and the U.S. fighters were recalled a second time. The USS Liberty suffered 70% casualties, 34 killed, 174 wounded, although the explosive state of the art ship was kept afloat by a heroic crew. Why didn't help come? No explanation has ever been given by the U.S. government for Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara and President Lyndon Johnson's orders for the Sixth Fleet to abort the rescue mission. Lieutenant Commander David Lewis of the Liberty told colleagues that Admiral Geiss, commander of the Sixth Fleet Carrier Force, told him that when he challenged McNamara's Secretary of Defense order to recall the rescue mission, LBJ, President of the United States, got on the line and said he didn't care if the ship sank. He wasn't going to embarrass an ally, Israel. The communications officer handed the transmission was given the same account. A BBC documentary on the Israeli raid reports confusion about the attacker's identity almost resulted in a U.S. assault on Egypt. Richard Parker, U.S. political counsel to Cairo, confirms in the BBC documentary he received official communications an American retaliatory attack on Egypt was on its way. The U.S. government's official position on the USS Liberty corresponds with Israel's. The attack was unintentional and a result of Israeli blunders. That's the official position, despite the fact that, listen carefully, audience, CIA Director Richard Helms, Secretary of State Dean Rusk, Assistant Secretary of State Louis Battle, and a long list of U.S. Navy officers, government officials, and Liberty survivors, all on record saying the Israeli attack was intentional and premeditated. According to Helms' battle and the minutes of a White House meeting that has been released under Freedom of Information, President Johnson believed the attack was also intentional. Helms says LBJ was furious and complained when the New York Times buried the story on page 29, but that Johnson decided he had to publicly accept Israel's explanation. Quote, this is from the actual meeting, the political pressure is simply too much. Political pressure from who? Israel and its political and economic supporters in the United States. U.S. communication personnel, intelligence analysts, and ambassadors report having read U.S. intercepts of Israeli orders to attack the Liberty. In one intercept that is now official and on file, an Israeli pilot reports that the Liberty is an American ship and asks for a repeat and clarification of his orders to attack an American ship. One Israeli, who identified himself as one of the pilots, later came to America and met with U.S. Representative Pete McCloskey and Liberty survivors. The pilot said he had refused to participate in the attack when he saw it was an American ship. He was later arrested when he returned to Israel. The Liberty flew the U.S. flag. The ship's markings, GTR-5, measuring several feet in height on both sides of the bow. On the stern of the ship was clearly marked USS Liberty. Mistaking the Liberty for an Egyptian ship, as Israel claims to have done, was simply impossible. The Israeli claim the Liberty flew no flag is a lie. 2 U.S. flags full of holes from the attack exist. When the first flag was shot down, crewmen replaced it immediately with a big 7-foot by 13-foot flag. This flag, with its battle scars, is on display at the National Security Agency's headquarters in Fort Meade, Maryland. Admiral John McCain Sr., the father of current U.S. Senator, ordered Admiral Isaac Kidd and Captain Ward Boston to hold a court of inquiry and to complete the investigation in a year? No, 5 days. In a signed affidavit, Captain Boston said President Johnson ordered a cover-up and that he and Admiral Kidd were prevented from doing a real investigation. All the Liberty survivors were ordered never to speak to anyone about the event. Their silence was finally broken when Lieutenant Commander James Ennis published the work Assault on the Liberty. It is now established fact that the attack on the Liberty was intentional and was covered up by President Johnson and every administration, including this one. There has never been a congressional investigation, nor has the testimony of the majority of survivors ever been officially taken. Moreover, testimony that conflicted with the cover-up was deleted from the official record. Disgusted by the U.S. government's official stance discounting the survivors' reports, Admiral Tom Moore, retired Chief of Naval Operations and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, organized the Moore Commission to make public the known facts about the attack and cover-up. The commission consisted of Admiral Moore, former Judge Advocate General of the U.S. Navy, and Admiral Merlin Staring, Marine Corps General Raymond Davis, and former U.S. Ambassador to Saudi Arabia James Atkins. The commission report concluded, quote, that there is a compelling evidence that Israel's attack was a deliberate attempt to destroy an American ship and kill her entire crew. That fearing conflict with Israel, the White House deliberately prevented the U.S. Navy from coming to the defense of the USS Liberty by recalling the Sixth Fleet military rescue support while the ship was under attack. That surviving crew members were threatened with court-martial, imprisonment, or worse if they exposed the truth, and the survivors were abandoned by their own government. That there has been an official cover-up without precedent in American naval history. That a danger to our national security exists whenever elected officials are willing to subordinate American interests to those of a foreign nation. In conclusion, why did Israel attack the Liberty? Was something super secret going on that is so damaging that it must be protected at all cost? Some experts believe Tel Aviv decided to sink the Liberty because the ship's surveillance capability would discover Israel's impending invasion and capture of Syria's Golden Heights. an action opposed by Washington. Others believe Israel was concerned the Liberty would discover Israel's massacre of hundreds of Egyptians prisoners of war, a war crime contemporaneously going on with the attack on the USS Liberty ship. Still others believe that Israel intended to blame the attack on Egypt in order to bring America into the war. It is known the U.S. was providing Israel with reconnaissance, and there were joint U.S.-Israeli covert operations against the Arabs that Washington was desperate to keep secret. Survivors with whom I've spoke said the attack was the easy part of the experience. The hard part has been living 40 years of an official cover-up and betrayal by the United States government. One survivor said he was asked to leave his church, his Baptist church, when he spoke about the Liberty incident, because the minister and fellow churchgoers felt more loyal to the official position than to this member of the congregation. Survivor Phil Tourney said, quote, "Being forced to live with a cover-up is like being raped and no one will believe you." Survivor Gary Brummett said he, quote, "feels like someone who has been locked up for 40 years on a wrongful conviction until the United States government acknowledges the truth of the attack." Brummett says the survivors are forced to live with the anger and dismay of being betrayed by the United States. Survivor Bryce Lockwood has been angry for 40 years. The torpedo that killed his shipmates, wrecked his ship, and damaged his health was made in the USA. Survivor Ernie Gallo told me, quote, he has been haunted for 4 decades by the knowledge that his commander-in-chief, President Lyndon Johnson, recalled the U.S. fighters that could have prevented most of the Liberty casualties. Every American should be troubled by the fact that the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense prevented the U.S. Sixth Fleet from protecting a U.S. Navy ship and its 294-man crew from foreign attack. They should also be troubled that the President ordered the Navy to determine the attack was unintentional. Paul Craig Roberts, commentary. And you think the false flag issues are a false conspiracy? I have not seen the left or the right take this issue on. I believe it's time. It would make a great story for a film or a documentary. I'm Gary Null. Thank you all for listening.